Hi guys, and welcome back to Dave's Game Room. The subject of today's video is all about the Xplorer range of cheat cartridges. Now the ones I've got in front of me here are the ones from my collection, and they're all for the Sony PlayStation. So you can see I've got this Xplorer FX. This one I do have a box for, but the box is a bit tatty and a bit beaten up, so this is the one that I use most of the time if I want to mess around with some games. Because, you know, you can obviously use cheat codes, but you can also have a bit of a play around with these, which I'll explain in a minute. I've got my boxed and complete, and the box is in really nice shape, Xplorer FX here. And over here I've got the sort of less common and a bit rarer Xplorer Professional that has the little Exorcist device that's used to help you find your own cheat codes, which is kind of cool. So if I go into a little bit more detail about the FX in particular, let's have a quick look at the cartridge, quick tour of it. You've got the connection there, which goes onto the connector on the back of the PlayStation, which I'll show you. Okay, so that's the back of my 1002, my SCPH 1002, and there's the parallel port that the Xplorer cheat cartridge plugs into. You're going to have to check whether your PlayStation console is compatible. If you've got one of the PS1s, one of the little ones, they are simply not compatible because they do not have that port. The SCPH 9000 series also don't have that port because Sony removed it, because it was also used for some unauthorized devices that allowed you to play backup games, pirated games, imported games. And some of the SCPH 7500 series models also don't have this port. Or if they do, it's actually been blanked over. The case is actually covering it. So if you've got a 7500 model, it might be worth just opening it up, taking the 6 screws out of it and having a look to see if that port's there, because it could be interesting. You might be able to swap the casing out. So yeah, my 1002 has got that on there, and the Xplorer literally just plugs straight onto the back of that port. So yeah, just like that. And there you can see the Xplorer sat there on the side of my PlayStation. Okay, on the side of the cartridge you've got the parallel connection, which you can actually rig up a Exorcist with the FX as well. There was actually an FX that was called the Xplorer FX Professional, that also was a Xplorer FX cartridge that came with the Exorcist device. So I can actually use that Exorcist with this one, and it does work. Also, you can rig up what was referred to as an X-Link cable back in the day that could plug into a PC that had a parallel port on the back of it to find your own codes using either a Windows utility that was written for Windows 95 or the X-Trainer software that was written for MS-DOS. I'll come on to that in a minute because there is still a way of being able to do that. But yeah, there is a bit of a caveat with that. So there's a simple on-off switch, which is rather self-explanatory. And on the back of all the Xplorer cartridges that I've seen / had over the years, you've got this little space here for the parallel port cover. That's come off of one of my PlayStations, and you can store it in the back there. It clips in the back, and it means it won't get lost. So that's the basics of the professional cartridge. Sorry, the FX cartridge. The Pro is pretty much the same. The design is pretty much exactly the same. Again, you've got the space here for the expansion cover, or the parallel port cover. And here is the Exorcist device, which looks a bit like an NES D-pad with some blue NES buttons. And this thing has a very simple menu on the LCD display here that you can search for codes by saying that a value that you're looking for has got greater than it was previously, less than it was previously, or is different, etc. And it will go through and it will use the trainer to actually search for codes in the PlayStation's memory. And that's how you can create your own codes. With the FX, there's actually a built-in game trainer menu that you can enable on the options. And then you can press a key combination on the PlayStation control pad and it will bring up a trainer menu. It works for the most part. There are some games that, when I actually have used this with the built-in trainer, either the game won't boot because it doesn't like the fact that this trainer is sort of sitting in the PlayStation's memory somewhere, or the buttons that are going to be used conflict with some of the programming of the game as the game's loading up or whatever. Or when you actually do activate the trainer menu, it actually screws up the graphics and the resolution of the screen. It all goes all a bit strange. I mean, one day I might actually demonstrate this for you and kind of give you a look at it, the inside of the trainer menu, so you can see what happens and get an idea for what I'm talking about, really. I will show you as well a couple of codes that I made using my Xplorer FX rigged up to a PC. So there is a link cable, or there is a parallel, I think it's called a DB29 cable that you can buy that goes from the port on the side here to the back of a desktop or laptop computer that's got a parallel port on it. I've actually got an old, really old HP machine that's about 10 or so years old that has a parallel port on the back of it. It's a laptop. It's not great. The port on it isn't great, and it does have some communication issues from time to time. It does crash and drop out, but it was good enough for me to be able to make my own cheat code the other day. So yeah, you're going to need a PC that over the last sort of, I'd say 10 years is probably max, because if you start getting older than that, the hardware is just not going to cope with using one of the methods that you'd have to use to get this running, and that is a special version of the DOSBox emulator, which will allow you to use the parallel port with the cable and run the Xtrainer software or the Xlink software in DOS using DOSBox. That would work. It works okay. The speed of it's all right. If you have only got a really old machine lying around and you can boot into a basic DOS, so something like DOS 6.22 or anything like that, it's got a parallel port on the back of it that's working, then you could just download the Xplorer software, put it onto a CD if it's got a CD-ROM drive, which hopefully it has, and then run the Xlink software with it rigged up to your PlayStation and your PlayStation turned on. And then from there you can have a bit of fun messing around with cheat codes. You can make your own codes. You can mess around with the PlayStation's memory. Like, for example, if there's a string of text that's in a menu, or when you pause the game it comes up with paused on the screen, you can change the text to say something different in a lot of games, and you can have a bit of fun with it, which I've done. Yeah, I'll go into more depth one day with the Xlink and the Xtrainer software, and so you can see what I'm talking about, and so you can see the possibilities. So for now, what I'll do is I'll show you the Xplorer FX's trainer menu. Why not? Might as well do it in this video. And I'll show you a code that I made for the original Ridge Racer game, which is known as a Joker code because you activate it by pressing buttons on the control pad, and a similar code for Gran Turismo 2, and the effect that it has on both games. In particular on Gran Turismo 2 it has quite a funny effect. Okay, so now we're at the Explorer's menu, and this is the code that I made. As you can see, the description is super speed, use circle to activate it. So I'm just going to go through and show you how this code works. This is a code I created with my PC, or sorry, with the laptop, the old laptop with the parallel port and parallel link cable, and created a Joker code which is activated by a button on the joypad, and as circle does nothing in Ridge Racer, I found the code that relates to circle and I included that so that it tells the cartridge to enable the cheat code that's underneath it when you press the button. So you can see the rev shot up to maximum there when I press circle, but if you do it straight off the start line you'll be wheel spinning and going nowhere to start with. So when you let go and accelerate normally and hold down circle, the car just goes absolutely mental. Look at the speed, look how fast it's going. You'll be able to pull off some absolutely insane drifts with this. Practically uncontrollable drifts, I must admit, but some insane drifts. There is already a super speed cheat on the Explorer cheat cartridge for Ridge Racer, but it's either on or it's off. You can't actually switch it on and off on the fly. That's what I like about being able to create Joker codes, so you can use a button combination to enable a cheat. Because there are actually some games that won't load with cheat codes present. It actually messes up some other parts of the process of the game loading, and the games will crash and lock up. So it's good to be able to actually press a button to enable it. So as you can see, look how fast I'm going, it's incredible. But what I started doing in the middle of that lap was using circle sparingly, which is a good idea. And so there you go. Now, Gran Turismo 2 is going to get the same treatment, this time with the select button, as you're going to see when we select the code. I've put it in the description on this one. Pause the video and make a note of these codes, guys, if you're interested and you've got a cheat device that can make use of these. So use select. Select does nothing when you're racing in Gran Turismo. So I thought, okay, let's assign it to select. And we're going to kick off Gran Turismo 2. Just waiting for that to load up. I have cut the loading times down. And here is one of my all-time favourite Gran Turismo cars, the Unisia Jex Skyline. Absolutely love this car. I remember one of my good friends, when he had Gran Turismo 2, he unlocked that car, and I just loved that car. I thought it was amazing. So we're going to do a full speed test, or a highest speed test. And as you're going to see, we're going to go straight into it, cut the loading times down. And look how fast the car's going to accelerate. Watch the bottom right corner of the screen. Look how quickly it's building up speed when I hold select down. And a bit of wheel spin as well as it's still doing it. And then the car's going to get up to nearly 500 kilometers per hour as we enter the first bank turn. Look at it, and it's wheel spinning. Incredible. When I messed around with this code and modified the value that changes the memory address to that specific value to the maximum, I think I might have done it a bit more. Yeah, it was the maximum. The car would actually take off. It'd go over 600 kilometers per hour, and it would start taking off, and it would start going backwards. That's how cool it was and how funny it was. And I remember seeing actually on Gran Turismo 3 someone doing that with a Suzuki Escudo Pikes Peak, but that was just with a setup. That wasn't with a cheat code. And that was funny to see as well, watching the Escudo take off. That was an absolutely monstrous car from Gran Turismo 2 onwards. I think that car was included. So you can see I'm coming towards the end of the maximum speed test. The car is still wheel spinning. And look at that. Again, same principle, using select to enable the code, and then obviously you let go of select and the code starts to, if you like, wind itself down until the speed goes to normal. So here's me showing enabling a button combination to make the in-game or the built-in trainer menu for the Xplorer FX cartridge to work. And I'm going to show you the drawback of it, because on some games won't even load at all. They'll lock up, they won't like it. Some games will be unplayable because they'll be extremely slow and stuttery. And in the case of Ridge Racer, it kind of messes the graphics up a bit on the sides and edges of the screen. So here we go, I'm going to enable it. You can already see it's gone a bit weird, the graphics have sort of shifted around a little bit. And when I resume game, look at that. A flickery, horrible, horrid mess all over the sides of the screen and the bottom of the screen there. And I'm going to go into the trainer menu again just to show you some of the options. It's not quite as in-depth as using a PC and being able to do advanced features like editing the memory and making advanced codes like Joker codes, but it does the job if you want to just find some basic cheat codes to help you along your way. I will do a video more in depth showing you the PC and the X-Link software. So guys, thanks very much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed this video showing you Xplorer cheat cartridges.